Algebra Chapter 2, Lesson 3, and we want to look at additive inverses and then the inverse of an inverse. The opposite of a number is called its additive inverse. So additive inverses would just be the mathematical definition or the mathematical phraseology or the mathematical terminology we use for the opposite of a number. And the number line shows us what the sum of opposite actually turns out being. So we start at a positive 4, and then the negative sign tells us to move to the left 4, and we end up at 0. The additive inverse of a negative number is its positive number, or its opposite. And again, if we start with negative 5 and we add to it a positive 5, moving 5 to the right, we end up at 0. So this is what we call the inverse property of addition, and for every number that exists, for every rational number there is a number that exists that's called its additive inverse, such that, or so that, when you add a number to its opposite, you always end up with the value 0. And this is going to be extremely important when it comes to solving equations and why we're able to solve equations. So whenever we have a number, the opposite of that number, when added to it, will equal 0, and that's the inverse property of addition. So a positive 17 added to its inverse, or its opposite, negative 17, will equal 0. And a negative 17 added to its opposite, which would be a positive 17, also equals 0. So that's the additive inverse property. Now, the inverse of an inverse is a very important concept, and this is where most algebra mistakes begin to be made when we're working with negative numbers. So I'm going to introduce something or show you a way to avoid making the mistakes, and I want you to use this moving forward in your math class. All right? You can evaluate expressions that involve addition by substituting a value in for a variable. We've done this before. Once we substitute the value in, then we simplify the expression. Now, the expression negative n means the opposite of n. Now, if n is a negative number, then you've got the negative of a negative, okay, which becomes a little bit complicated, only in the sense that if we're not careful to keep track of our negative signs, we can end up losing one, and that's going to throw our entire evaluation process kind of out of whack. What is a whack, anyways? The expression negative n can represent a negative number, a 0 number, or a positive number. Basically, what we're talking about here is a negative sign can mean or does mean the opposite of. And so whenever you see a negative sign, we want to think the opposite. When we see negative 8, we want to read it as the opposite of 8. And the opposite of 8 is a negative number. Now, when it comes to evaluating, this is where the problem comes in. So when we're evaluating, which is substituting in and simplifying, we want to use a parentheses for the variable, and this will help us to avoid losing those important negative signs. So if we have the expression determine negative x when x is negative 65, that means they want me to substitute in negative 65 into the expression. The most common mistake is going to be made when a student will write negative, and then they'll look at the negative 65, and because they see a negative sign already there, they'll call it negative 65. But that's incorrect, because it's the opposite of negative 65. And so if we go through this process, and again, I'm going to require that you do this, you write negative parentheses, so you rewrite the expression, and for every variable you put a parentheses in. So you have a negative parentheses for the value of x. Now you go back and you put in a negative 65, and you'll notice we have a negative 65. And then to remove the parentheses, we multiply this negative 1 times this negative 65, and it becomes positive. So you can see how the answer in positive 65 and negative 65 is very different. And it's because we make the mistake by writing negative, and then we look to the negative 65, and we forget to put the second negative sign, and we end up with just a negative 65. So I want you to write parentheses when you're evaluating.